Hello, and you're very welcome along to another edition of the JMAC podcast. I'm John McMahon, and of course, the podcast is kindly brought to you by Orgarech.com. Use my promo code JMAC podcast to get 15% off on their website. And tonight, I'm joined by Killian Whelan to run the rule on all the Total Cup action and, of course, the All Ireland Series action. So, really looking forward to chatting to Killian tonight. How are you?
How are you doing, John? Good to see you again.
Good stuff, sir. Good stuff. Did you have a nice weekend between the showers?
Yeah, between the showers, yeah. Look, a bit of GA action and obviously getting to enjoy some of the material that was on Sunday then, an afternoon of the hurling that was on. It was what I got basically was following, with obviously an interest in the Joe McDonagh Cup final. Obviously, my home county, and then up against lads that I would obviously have taught in school and coached and everything. We're playing for Kildare, so it was an interesting mix, and I got to hang out with a few of them today just to congratulate them. But yeah, no, it was an unusual weekend, as we know. You know, the Munster hurling final obviously taking precedent, but somewhere someone decided to throw in a few Tailteann Cup games as well. But you wouldn't have known it though, John. I don't think, you know.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. But look, it was a busy weekend of sport. It always is, and look, really until July now, it's going to be hot and heavy, and it's great to have all these games to look forward to and divulge in. I suppose Killian will start into the action over the weekend in the Tailteann Cup preliminary quarterfinals. It was Westmeath against Tyrone County Laois. It was Westmeath 326, Laois 115 in TG Cusack Park. Killian, what has been a difficult, I suppose, year for Dermot McCabe and Leitrim, especially in the league? He really has got the house in order, and he's had a very good Total Cup with that Westmeath team, and Luke Loughlin is absolutely shooting lights out at the minute. Obviously, not the result you would have wanted from a Laois perspective, but Dermot McCabe has Westmeath where he wants them now.
Yeah, well done, this Westmeath. Can we move on, John? As quick as possible there.
Right, okay. Next game.
No credit. Look, credit Westmeath.
In fairness, I would have been the same last week after the Donegal game, so I can understand your frustration, Killian.
Look, credit Westmeath. Like Westmeath have been very unlucky this year, John. They've been on the very close end of is it 5 games? I think they lost between league and championship. They've come out on the wrong side by just a single point. Like it's they're not that far away, and maybe it's setting up for them now quite well. They have a difficult enough game obviously coming up now with heading to Ockram, and nothing will be easy there. But like Westmeath have been trading above everybody else in the league this year, so you'd have to put them as favourites, I think, for the Tailteann Cup. I just like the brand of football that they played. They just have been, as I said, been very unlucky with some of the results that have gone their way. But yeah, look, Luke Loughlin, what more do you say about him? But McCartan as well, 8 points. I know he's number 7 on his back, but that doesn't always mean he's in around that location. But look, just Laois couldn't lay a glove on them. They never got anywhere near them, and the goal came from a club next door to myself at home. The Jonah got in and got a goal towards the end that added a little bit to the scoreline for Laois, but Laois weren't. I don't even think they turned up in TG Cusack Park. It just was a disappointing end now to Justin McNulty's second season when you consider everything that went so well last year. Making the final, and look, the big achievement is probably to maintain Division 3 status for Laois. I'm sure he would have liked to go a little bit further. There's no question about that in the Tailteann Cup, having done that last year. But look, it just didn't fall for them. And I would imagine there's a bit of soul searching went on after that performance. And I'm sure Justin will be thinking himself what's going to come out of year 3. From a Laois point of view, I just think, look, the consolidated Division 3, that was the main thing. I think that they've good enough footballers to be Division 3, and probably seeking the push for promotion now will be the task for next year. But for Westmeath, I think they're a county that, we have seen them being able to play at Sam Maguire level, John. I think they're well able for that level. So they find themselves in the Tailteann Cup. But to me now, if they start putting away scores like that and get the belief that they obviously can see off opposition, well then, to me, it's going to make an interesting end. It's going to be interesting to see how the draws obviously falls from the weekend. But Kildare, Offaly, Westmeath, they're probably the 3 that would ultimately be in contention as favourites for this title.
Yeah, because we played Westmeath in the Tottenham Cup final in 2022. That obviously didn't end well. They have to be severe favourites in that competition. And I think Dermot McCabe will be going all out to win that competition after such a disappointing league. And obviously,
Mm.
Dermot's a board winner. He had great success even with the Cavan seniors underage. Like, he really does know how to win trophies, win competitions. So I would not be surprised if Westmeath go up the steps of the Hogan stand in a couple of weeks' time. I seen an interesting quote there today. Just McNulty does fully intend to, stay on next year as well. Killian, I suppose that does kind of, a bit of stability, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's look. I saw that myself, and it's good for Leash that he is because I think Justin has a good track record. He's a good system there involved. Probably, the thing will be now to hold on to certain players that he's obviously blooded this year, and maybe get one or two back in as well. I do think Leash probably relied a little bit on Mark Barry and one or two others maybe to chip in. Evan O'Carroll will hopefully be back from that injury. He serious loss, so obviously, the bit of firepower and the bit of nuance and leadership that he adds to the team, big loss. But there have been obviously other players that got a chance this year, and as I said, maintaining Division Three, that was the big thing for Leash, and probably disappointment that they've gone out so early out of the Tailteann. But yeah, I agree with you with regards to Dermot McCabe. I think it's going to be, if he wants to be competing at the top table, they know they're not going to be able to do it from their league position next year. So the chance then is obviously you have to go with the position that offers you this moment, and what that is the Tailteann Cup, and a way back into the top table.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously, you can't base this on maybe the last couple of results, but I can just see Westmeath winning the Tall Cup. I know you have Kildare, I know you have Offaly there as well, but I think when Derek McCabe gets into these positions, the man is definitely hard stopped, make no doubt about it. And then the other Tall Cup game on Saturday, it was Offaly 225, New York 112 in Glennisk O'Connor Park. Very comfortable win for Offaly here. Killian, and I suppose no, I'm going to have to say this, Killian, and you probably will never talk to me again. No fairy tale of New York.
Jesus, John, you're about 6 months out, but yeah, look, it was a non-event. Probably, again, it is a situation. If New York and Leitrim were to play, I know I saw someone writing an article that Leitrim obviously would feel hard done by. I don't think they can. No disrespect to Leitrim over the year that they had. New York, we know the situation beforehand. They've been there. They've been in the Tailteann Cup the last number of years. We know where they come in. So you miss out on one of the third place in the Tailteann Cup, which, if you want, John, we can go down this road. I don't think there should be prelims in this Tailteann Cup. I think it's just nonsense fixtures. You're finishing third place in the group. Shouldn't be prelims. I don't think you deserve to be still in the hunt for an All Ireland title if you're finishing third in your group. And that goes from my own county and Laois. Just it is. But anyway, New York come in, probably one of the weaker New York teams in recent years, and I don't think they'll be able to lay a hand on Offaly, and they didn't. Offaly probably took the eye off the ball a little bit against Laois in Newbridge, the previous week, but they knew they had qualified, but sure, then obviously the way things worked out, it probably, I'm sure Mickey Hart still had strong words with them because it cost them top of the table, and it allowed Wicklow to go straight to the quarterfinals. But look, Offaly have got there, they got probably the easier draw, let's say, in the prelims, and with Dylan Hyland in the form that he's in, it's just unbelievable at the minute. The man can't be stopped from Raheen there. 112, so he scored New York's total, so that just show you. Keith O'Neill, Jack Bryant, where do we keep going? There's loads of talent there, as we know that Offaly have. They this is going to be some game in Newbridge on Saturday evening. No love lost between the two. Kildare smarting obviously from a Division 3 final loss to them. And Offaly don't fear coming to Newbridge, so it could make it interesting, at 6:30 Saturday evening.
And it's not on TV. Geez, imagine if we had a streaming service for these games, Killian. Just imagine.
Sorry, I think. Sorry, what did you say there, John? Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one, John. In fairness to you, yeah, imagine. I just don't. I don't get how you remarket a whole streaming service and then you don't put on the games that are not on television. It's
Oh God. Well, look, whatever Cavan have done to GAA Plus, I'd love to know. That's what I would love to know. We are getting shafted in this All Ireland series, but anyway, that's for another day's conversation. Killian, Sunday's action in the Total Cup preliminary quarter final. It was Sligo against Carlow. It was Sligo 127, Carlow 219 in Tubbercurry. Good game there.
Yeah, does anyone know why he was in Tubbercurry? If any Sligo fans are out there, might let me know. I don't know if there was anything to be known about Markovich Park, but look, it probably added to the drama a little bit, John. This was the best game of the weekend. I know Carlo were writing, I think, on their social media afterwards. Well, I think some of the local reporters maybe, to say that at least Carlo finished the year with a spirited performances and credit to them after everything that went on with Kate Curran. Like it was good to see a bounce back. Joe Murphy would have, he bleeds Carlo, so look, he'll have an opportunity there now to winter and have a look at the lads and see how the championship goes in Carlo. And I would think Carlo might be favourites for Division 4 next year, John. Getting moves in the right direction again. I think there's quality enough footballers there. Again, I think they're too strong for Division 4. If they get everybody pulling, they get a talented enough group of lads there, I think Carlo should be operating in Division 3 minimum in the National Football League. But look, it just doesn't always happen for them coming from a small base. But people talk about small bases, look at Louth at what they're able to achieve. So, there's nothing to say Carlo couldn't do the exact same thing. So watch out for Carlo. I think in the league definitely next year on making progress under Joe Murphy. So it was glad for them that they made concerted effort, but Sligo probably had just done enough, got ahead, and despite the Carlo fight back and everything, we're able to, this whole element, John. Look, what's becoming important in this new game is obviously the ability to be able to kick 2 pointers, and that was definitely a situation that you have O'Connor there, middle of the field, he's able to ping a few as well. Alan Riley, I think, did he? Niall Murphy, sure, Niall Murphy would get on most teams in the country. So like his ability, long range kicking, definitely it helped Sligo in this game. But that was the best game of the four ultimately. I know there was a bit of a shootout in Wexford Park as well, but Wexford had a sufficient lead that Antrim weren't able to eat into. So, look, the Sunday's action, there wasn't a whole lot to write home, but as I said again, don't understand the need for prelims, quarterfinals in the Tailteann Cup. Just don't. And look, as it turned out, the four teams that were expected to come through came through, and the only real battle was Sligo and Carlow.
Absolutely. And then talking about games that probably didn't end too well, it was Wexford against Antrim. It was Wexford 523, Antrim 221 in Chadwick's Wexford Park. Very high scoring game there. I think Andy McEntee, he'd be very disappointed. I think he said after the game, now is not the time to be talking about his future, but I think that could be all she wrote from the Andy McEntee and Antrim situation. I would be imagining, Killian, that's a very disappointing result. And look, it doesn't get any easier up there for them.
No, it doesn't. But look, in fairness, Andy has given his all, and they pulled off a couple of um, results over his tenure. And like in fairness, they give Armagh a game for a certain amount of the opening round of the Ulster Championship. But yeah, he like if you're thinking about development and kicking on and wanting to be in the mix, like you'd have to be beating Wexford, but your Wexford to be saying the exact same thing. They have to be beating Antrim. So, they're of the same level. Wexford footballers probably, if you're to call a spade, they're probably just a little marginally ahead of Antrim. So, as I said, they got the run of goals, and that seemed to, quell Antrim. And even though Antrim did fight back with a couple of goals themselves, it was too much to get back at. So, as I already said, I would have fancied Wexford to win that game, and the four have gone through, and as he said, has set up some interesting ties for this weekend.
Absolutely, Killian. And sticking with the Total Cup this weekend on Saturday in the Total Cup quarterfinals, you've Kildare against Offaly in St. Conick's Park, Newbridge at 6:30. And as you forward mentioned, Killian, that is going to be a mouth-watering game. Brian Flanagan against Mickey Hart. I suppose, to use the term, the rookie against the wily old fox, Mickey Hart. That's going to be an interesting game. And as we said a couple of minutes ago, it's a pity it's not going to be live.
Yeah, look, it's a game that's obviously, no disrespect to the other counties, but it's a repeated Division 3 final. It's the pick of the weekend. It's a game that probably would stand out in the Sam Maguire if it was near neighbours. They have many a battle over the year. Kildare, I suppose, would have had Offaly's number up until quite recently, and I think won. My memory serves me right from seeing stats today. They've won 11 meetings, or yeah, I had the better of Offaly, I think, in about 11 meetings prior to this year. So the Division 3 league final didn't go Kildare's way. Offaly were able to hound them and hassle and bully them around, I would have felt, Crow Park. So, Kildare now in front of you with a hope, a raucous enough Newbridge, with everything that went on with their hurlers, with their big win in the McDonagh Cup final. They're on at 4 o'clock against Dublin in a preliminary quarter final in the Lee McCarthy. You'd be hoping that Newbridge would be stuffed to capacity, 13, 14,000 people in it. And that sets it up then for a right raucous game then at 6:30. There'll be no love lost there. John, I think if you could get yourself to Newbridge, it would be worth a game to watch. It's just a pity it clashes with everything else that's going on, because there's obviously All Ireland Sam Maguire games going on. So that's the pity of all of this, in that you had a weekend last weekend which I feel was nonsense as regards prelims, that you could have played the Tailteann Cup quarterfinals last weekend, and then you have the All Ireland group ending scenarios this weekend. Now have the Tailteann Cup. So you could have given the free weekend to the Tailteann Cup this weekend. And I think then it would have you would have had, like, imagine Kildare or Sligo, put it on television, make it accessible to people. Might have been a game, or Kildare and Offaly, I should say, might have made it more appealing. Again, I go back. I don't see the need for prelims definitely in the Tailteann Cup. I still have doubts about it at the Sam Maguire as well. But look, you're talking about weekends and not having enough. I do think some of the weekends are not utilised correctly either, in my opinion. So, like Kildare and Offaly will be one of the games of the weekend, I would think. But then you could have a situation where if Offaly turn up and have that game face on, and Dylan Hyland in the form he's in,
Yeah.
Kildare, we know, have a little soft belly sometimes, and if a fight comes on, maybe they won't. But they could prove me wrong. And Brian Flanagan, astute enough manager, know Brian for a long time, maybe he would just be loving this encounter, because he knows that obviously if you're going to be serious lads getting to Croke Park and winning the Tailteann Cup, you have to beat the likes of Offaly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he gave Offaly a serious chance in that game. I don't know
Oh,
what.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm telling you, I think that could be one of the bets of the weekend potentially. And then you from Fermanagh against Sligo in Brewster Park at 5 p.m. That'll be very, very interesting. Tony McEntee against Kieran Donnelly along the sideline down in Brewster Park. Tight one to call.
Yeah, it's a tight one to call. But it's probably two teams of a similar level. I no disrespect for Man and Sligo. If you're looking at Kildare and Offaly, you're thinking they're a step above Sligo and Fermanagh. So like, it's a chance for one of these teams to get to a semi-final, and potential for upset or whatever down along the line and make it all the way to Croke Park potentially is there. But look, I just think the Sligo have more in the locker here. When you've the players that obviously Sligo have at their disposal in recent time, and just some of the quality that they have. Now, I did see Laois beat them in a league campaign. I suppose when everyone was getting used to the new rules and whatever, and Laois just seemed to maximise them better. But I do think Sligo have grown into the year. They just seem to have within the Tailteann Cup anyway have got that little bit better. And obviously ran Mayo fairly close in the Connacht Championship. So, I think the likes of Murphy, Riley, Quinn, O'Connor, like, these are guys that would, as I said, make most inter-county panels. So I give the nod to Sligo on this one. I just think that they will be in a situation where they're just playing a bit better football. Now, if Fermanagh come with a kind of defensive mindset, which they have on occasion, and obviously they're on their home pitch, and if they make it a bit of a place that you don't want to come, like, it might ask questions of Sligo. I just think maybe Sligo's firepower is going to be too much.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to follow this weekend, absolutely. And then on Sunday's action in the Tottenham Cup quarterfinals, you have Limerick against Wexford in TUS Gaelic grounds at 4:15. And of course, the game will be live on GAA Plus.
Yeah, repeated the Division 4 final, and a game that obviously that Division 4 final Wexford went into it unbeaten, and then suffered at the hands of Limerick, who just as I said, put things away and scored goals, and that was a major factor. Wexford struggled to get over that loss, John. Didn't go well in the Leinster Senior Championship, and into the Tailteann, found themselves then in a situation where they had to go through the back door as such and come in through a prelim and so forth. So like that really was that really probably had to ask them questions of themselves, because it ended up in that situation. But look, It's an interesting encounter because you have a Limerick team that finished top of their group. They beat Westmeath in that group, don't forget. And like this Limerick team won't be taken for granted either. They have some very strong footballers there. The likes of Nocton will be one. Ian Corbett played such a huge role now at that centre back position, considering he was such a good forward in his time. You,
Class.
you throw in Richter and Neville as well. Those are guys that are going to be the go-to here with regards when it comes to Limerick. And like Jimmy Lee is no, how would I say it? He knows every ins and outs of every one of those Limerick players. Having served within the county himself. So any team that can go and beat Westmeath and then they're up against Wexford, you'd be fancying Limerick on home turf to be able to get the win. But you have a Wexford team that still have the ability to be able to score 523 against Antrim, and you've Ben Brosnan who's rolling back the year, Sean Nolan in the team of the week this week, getting 2-3. Like if you get those guys knocking goals, I think Wexford are going to need goals to win this, John, personally. And if they score goals, maybe that's where they'll cause Limerick problems. But Limerick are my fancy to win that quarter final.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the last Total Cup game of the weekend, it's Wicklow against Westmeath and Aughrim, a 1:15. And of course, the game will be live on GA Plus. This is a very interesting game. I know Westmeath will be favourites going into it, but Aughrim, a very difficult place to go. Oshie McConville against Dermot McCabe will be very interesting. Lads who would have played against each other on numerous occasions. Armagh and Cavan, if there is an upset, this could potentially could be one. I know we talked about that Offaly Kildare game, but who knows in Aughrim what could happen.
Yeah, Ockram still has that little bit of everyone kind of, if you're going down to it, you're kind of go, oh, there is that little bit of a shudder happens when it goes about, and Leash found that out in when they went down to Wicklow, and I think just took their eye off the ball that little bit, and if they hadn't lost to Wicklow, it might have been a better season. We could be talking about Leash in a quarter final this weekend rather than the situation that's worked itself out. But look. Wicklow under Oshie McConville, difficult enough team to beat on occasion and have quality footballers too, so like it's not something that Westmeath can take for granted. The only thing is though, John, I would say is I think if Westmeath go down there taking Wicklow for granted, well then that's maybe where some of the problems could come about for Westmeath. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this Westmeath team are charging in the right direction. Wicklow though have with McGrainer, Kenny,
Mm,
Darcy, they've hit the light. Oh, Dean Healy's having a bit of a year of it as well. They're in a good place as well. The only thing I would think is that obviously Westmeath have been operating at a couple of levels above Wicklow. Other than the romance of Ockram and everything else that would happen. If Westmeath go down there with the game face on, knowing
mm,
that they are in with a real chance here now of getting back to Croke Park and winning a Tailteann Cup. I know
yeah,
it's a few steps ahead, but they have to be going to Ockram and coming away with the victory. I would think their firepower will be enough to get them to win.
yeah. What a story it would be if we heard Wicklow were getting the job done against Westmeath over the weekend, though. That'd be one of the stories of the summer.
You're just rubbing that in now because they're your neighbours. I know that's what you're at. Like, you do. You, as imagine as a Cavan man to hear Westmeath were maybe getting their asses handed to them. Like, you'd only love it. I'd imagine.
Oh, it'd be so, in fairness though, imagine if you heard an RTE somebody, oh my god, it'd be some story. My god, Oshie McConville, geez, he wouldn't be on the BBC social for but a month after, I'd say. But it'll be very interesting that one this weekend. Who knows what could happen down in Auckland? Geez, I've been there a few times. And if you come home in one piece, it's always a great success story. On Saturday, in the All Ireland Senior Football Championship round three, you have Armagh against Galway in Kingspan Breffty Park in Cavan at 6:30. And of course, the game will be live on GAA Plus. Really interesting game, this one, Killian. Armagh are through to a quarter final. Galway need to win to get to a quarter final. Mickey Graham's coming back to Cavan. Kieran McGeeney's along the sideline. Porrick Joyce. Oh, it is the makings of a good one.
Has the makings of a good one, yeah. And you'd hope it'll all be about football and it won't be anything about kind of a refereeing decision or mistakes or even a little bit of an altercation or anything like that taking place. We know Galway and Armagh have had their little dust ups in the past, but look, I don't think Armagh under McGeaney, there is absolutely no way they're going to take this easy at all because they're looking at Galway potentially, if they were to let Galway win, they're going to be meeting them somewhere else down along the line. There's going to be no way
Yeah.
McGeeney's going to give Joyce any little, you know, birthday card. Here you go, Pádraig, go on with yourselves there now. Fair play to
Yeah.
you, well done.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because I was watching Paddy Andrews over the weekend and he's convinced that McGeady will start a very weak team against Galway. I don't know. And as you're rightly after saying, I think this is just, there's a bit of begrudgery there. There's a bit of rivalry there. We've seen what happened, was it the summer 2022 or summer 23 when, there's a couple of fisticuffs and, up in Croke Park. I don't know. I think there'll be a bit of edge to this one.
Yeah, you would imagine there will be, but look, we could be talking to our hat here as well, John. I'd be surprised off McGeeney if he makes any more than 4 changes. I'd be very surprised. I don't
I
think
think
he's
he will go strong. He will. He will.
I'd be very surprised. Thinking that, as I said, if you were to give Galway the win and they come around and they meet you back around somewhere in a semi-final or something like that, like I don't know. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't be fancying that McGeeney will go easy here in any way. Now, if you were thinking like McGeeney that you're gonna, the result of that game knocks out somebody else, well, he is a man of the dark arts as well. He sure a benefit of somebody else if it knocked out somebody else. But I don't think McGeeney thinks like that. I'm only half in jest here. I firmly believe he's going for the win, and that'll be it. And he wants to lay down markers. And again, it's about proving that Armagh are the ones that everyone else has to go and take the Sam Maguire off of.
Yeah, I think they're strong All Ireland contenders, Armagh. So, that has the makings of hopefully a great one on Saturday night, and hopefully the weather definitely
And
plays.
do you know something? Do you know something, John? It might not either. It might not be a great one because the way some of these
Ah,
games that they're built up, they can become a bit of a drudgery, and like Galway have been found, John, a little bit now just in this group. They haven't fired on all cylinders. They're maybe, struggling to get. I don't know. I'm just disappointed with Galway since the Connacht final. Just have lost their way a little bit. I don't know what it is. It's maybe things were just. I don't know. Maybe we should have seen it. We should have looked into the Connacht final a little bit more. I'm just wondering, was that performance towards the end of the Connacht final, were Galway starting to show us that maybe not everything is going at full cylinders. Do you understand me? Now I
mm,
know obviously they've had injuries and obviously Comer and Walsh, Jesus, they're huge losses in lots of ways, but like I think Galway are going to need them if they're going to go
mm,
on and ultimately win it. But I
mm.
just don't I'm just concerned about the Galway shape and form. And maybe look, they'll come out and maybe Armagh will be the one to fire them all up and we'll see a different Galway now. Because as you said, John, from this weekend it all heats up. So maybe we'll all be proven wrong, but I just am a little bit disappointed with Galway in this group. And I know it was made out to be the group of death, but it hasn't really, has it?
No, 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 not at all. But Killian, I'm so disappointed in you. I think I'm going to go to that game, and you're completely after blowing me bubble up. Jesus Christ, Killian. Mondays are depressing enough.
Well, there you go. I'm just trying to think of the drudgery that it might become, but
No, 110%. Like, and people talk with group depth, but I think I don't know. I think there will be a bit of edge. I think Kieran McGeeney, essentially, if Armagh win, like is that dumping Galway out of the All Ireland Championship? Like
that's
that's a massive part. Kieran McGeeney loves upsetting the party. He'd love to beat Pork Joyce again. Pork Joyce would love to beat McGeeney. I think if Jesus Christ, imagine if Damien Comer, Shane Walsh, and Ray O'Neill are all in the one pitch together. Hopefully that will happen. I don't know. I think, it should be good, but again, as you say, it couldn't be, it might not be.
well, like Derry have only got to overcome 3 point deficit, and that is overall. So it would come down like it'll come down to scoring one to them between Derry and Galway. So like if Derry lose to Dublin by less than what Galway lose, it's going to be a situation then that Derry will obviously go through in third place. So yeah, I think you could have John, and maybe I'm playing it too cold here or whatever, but you could have death by 1,000 cuts in this game now in Brentford Park. It could be hard watch like so.
Okay. Okay.
But then,
Don't.
hey, we'll be back here next week, and it's turned out Galway 640 to Armagh, 725 or something, and
Yeah,
and and
yeah,
and we'll be talking one of the greatest games of the championship or something. I'd be
yeah.
surprised if it's the greatest game of the championship.
No,
You know,
no. Look, it'd be like in a fantastic world. Imagine if it was like a Shea Walsh and Ray O'Neill shootout. Like that would just be off the charts, and that can happen. Like I think I said this to you a few weeks ago, Killian. I still don't know what the story is with Shane Walsh, and a lot of people are saying since the league, where has his form gone? Is there stuff going on off the field? No one really knows, and like you don't hear anything from county camps, and it's not like Port Joyce is going to come out tomorrow and say what is going on. But I think there's more to meet the eye with Shane. He just doesn't look clued in. He's not the player he was a couple of years ago. Like I'd love to see him hitting his heights again, but like, will that happen even this weekend? Will we even see the man on the pitch?
yeah, yeah, and Joyce seems to be, sticking to his guns with regards to everything. Now, look, we can only surmise. I don't know, John. I know, like, you can turn around and I've seen people kind of criticize, oh, maybe it's because Shane Walsh, living in Dublin and driving up and down, and he's with Kilmacud, and maybe they're still sore over that in Galway. You're going, but your Joyce lives in the K Club in Straffan, so he's up and down the same road, like, so what are you talking about ultimately? I know maybe it's different for a player than a manager sitting in a car for a couple of hours and so forth. But look, you can't you be worried. Yes, it's disappointing that his form has eluded him, but I'm not sure Shane is completely over. A couple of injuries that he's had in recent times, and that's maybe a factor. And you see there now, even Comer is probably only going to be used intermittently in some ways too, So maybe they're just the style, this what Joyce has had to play, they don't maybe fit it or suit it at the minute. So, he's probably going to go with what he has. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if you see both of them at some point on the pitch either, especially if there's something needed in the game, John. Like, this is going to be like, you could be in last chance saloon here ultimately, because if Galway don't go and like, to me, if Galway go along and they beat Armagh and they only win by a point or two, they're gone out of the All Ireland series for me. They're not going to win an All Ireland from that point, like, because
Yeah,
people are probably looking at, oh, sure, Armagh were through anyway, blah blah blah. Like, I think if Galway want to be considered,
they can win a few.
we're going to have to see them win by a few points.
Mm.
It has to be upwards from six, I think, seriously. But who knows?
Yeah, but like I think if Armagh starts strong, and like I know a lot of people are saying like they might go weak, but I think if Armagh go strong, that's more than sides of Galway, and Armagh's flying at the minute. They're through to an All Ireland quarter final, but again, it feeds into this narrative. Does Kieran McGeady go with the mindset of, right, maybe rest a couple of lads and then maybe bring them on? Like it's a weird sort of psychology going into it.
Yeah, and that's why I think McGeady won't overdo it. Like, you're not going to see 15 new bodies on the field of play. He might try to get more game time into one or two guys in the process of obviously knowing there's quarterfinal, semi-final, and final potentially ahead. So maybe that's the way he'd be thinking. But I'd be very surprised if he feels like, as Paddy Andrews, if alluding to that to be a full 15 or even 10 changes or eight, whatever. I'd be surprised. But again, sure, look, Geezer prove us all wrong anyway. He's the man with all the cards anyway. That's at the end of the day. He's the one that said that his team is probably in the most form. So, he's like, Rian O'Neill coming back into that setup has all of a sudden just shot Armagh's chances back up the charts. It's just he's a phenomenal player, and he's just coming in cooked at the right time. But it looks at things.
Incredible. Wonder will Geezer stop by Shawnee's house for a cup of tea on the way home?
No, no, I'm saying nothing.
Shawnee lives 5 minutes from the pitch. It's not too far away.
Is that the one? Is that the one in Strafford or in? Oh, sorry, Cavan. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Oh, Lord above. Don't mention the word, Killian. Right, moving on
Hello
to
to Shawnee. Hello to Shawnee if he's watching, by the way.
I've asked him a few times to no avail, so who knows? Who knows? Anyway, moving on to war before we both get ourselves into war. Dublin against Derry in Park Esler at 6:30, and of course, the game will be live on GAA Plus. Well, Killian, I would love to know what it feels like to be from Cavan and have a game on GAA Plus. That's my first question, and then the second question is, who's going to win?
You're not going to let that go, are you? Um, yeah. Well, this could be an interesting encounter. Like, Derry have got the draw against Galway. pushed Armagh. Like it's a case of what Dublin team turns up for me. I just happened to be coming out of Parnell Park after a Camogie match here on Saturday, and the Dublin players were all coming in their sponsored Peugeots, and they obviously were about to do a session at Parnell Park or whatever. Um, like you're looking, Parnell Park probably dimension wise would be similar enough to Park Esler, I would imagine. The Titan is kind of the location a little bit or whatever. Maybe there's a method in the madness there. But like Dublin could go into that game and again be in a situation, John, where they shoot the lights out, and we're looking at things going. Maybe this Dublin team are starting to launch themselves back to people were writing them off and writing their epitaph and everything. But like I would be disappointed in the Dublin performance, obviously the last day. So they have obviously I think a point to prove. Having gone down to Salt Hill and defeated Galway.
Yeah.
Um, will the real Dublin please stand up?
Mm.
That's kind of where we're at. But the concern would be as well a little bit in that um where are they going to get the scores from? That seems to be a little bit of a concern with regards to Dublin. And Basquel, you know, was a man that lit up the last year and seemed to be every time he took a shot, it was going over or under. Like just that form seems to have gone. Um, they seem to be relying on one or two individuals then out the field. There been too many hot and cold performances. So, but maybe they're just peppering along, and maybe this is an opportunity for them. Like at the end of the day, they're in second place in that table. Galway have to beat Armagh. Um, Dublin have to lose to Derry for them not to be, as I said, heading into the quarterfinals. So, maybe Dublin are in that fanciful position that they're fine and they'll have enough in the tank. But it's I wouldn't be taking anything for granted with Derry. Derry obviously this was a game probably Derry were lining up. So if Ants to go right for Paddy Tally this year, then this maybe is the one that it has to happen in. But yeah, I wouldn't be taking anything for granted at all. With this game, and I'm not trying to sit on the fence here or anything, but like Derry have been hitting have been hitting the traps a little bit, John. They've been getting the scores. Maybe it's starting to come together for them. Like we haven't seen McGuigan maybe at top form, but he probably showed a little bit against Galway the last day. Glass there, Rogers. There's still guys there that we know can do the needful on the day. Whereas Dublin, as I said, have maybe blown a little bit hot and cold. And in reality, like Armagh beat them by 5 points the last day, but like it felt more like 25 points.
It did feel like that, yeah.
Like it's yeah, it could be a game now where you have someone like Lorcan O'Dell all of a sudden shoot the lights out. It could be that kind of encounter. Costello will always be chipping in. He'll be there. He's always a guy flying around. Bugler, to me has become such a big player for Dublin.
Lass. Just got on mute there, Killian.
Sorry about that.
There you
I
go.
I,
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dublin win this game. Or sorry, Derry win this game because I think that they might just have the forwards that will trouble Dublin that little bit more. And I think it's a game that obviously Derry would have been targeting in the group once they had the group. I think they would have been reckoning it could be a fight out between themselves and Dublin. I think it'd be an honest like if we were thinking of Armagh and Galway, you were thinking they were going to be the top two. You're probably looking at the Connacht champions. Maybe we would even have thought that Galway would top the group. Armagh would be second. So then who was the third was to me it was always going to be Dublin and Derry. So here we are now in a situation. Right, fine. It's Armagh are going to be top of the table with looks of things. So you know. Dublin and Derry was always going to be the game. So, like, Paddy Tally has been eyeing this game up for a number of weeks out, I'd imagine. So that's what gives me the belief that Derry might just be able to do one on Dublin here.
Yeah. That'll be an interesting one at the weekend. Make no doubt about it. And then you have Roscommon against Cork in Laois Higher Moor Park at 4:15. And of course, the game will be live on GA Plus.
That the GA Plus that you like, John, is it?
Don't mention the war, Killian. Do not mention the war. We have been shafted. Charlotte, what has the Cavan folk ever done to you? Whoever's running the show.
Um, I don't know what to make of this encounter, and I have to be very, very careful, John, with my Roscommon family connections. I can't be too hard on them, but like, will
It's
the
a
real
nothing
will the
game.
real Roscommon and Cork stand up, please? Like Cork,
Uh,
it's again, a situation that I don't know what to make of these two teams. I really don't. I think Roscommon are now threatening to go backwards under Davy Burke after so much have been the promise there, and I think Cork have risen a fight in the two games that they've obviously played. There'd be a lot of people saying that they should have beaten Kerry, probably should have had them caught, but like it hasn't happened. They're just something not clicking for Cork, and they're actually meeting a team that's in a similar situation. So
mm,
this could actually be a bit of a ding dong, and ultimately whoever wins is obviously going to get that prelim quarter final. So hard one to call, but I'm going to go with Cork. I just think the bite in them might be that little bit more than what Roscommon are able to offer.
yeah, geez, them preliminary quarterfinals seemed like a great job.
Yeah, don't get me started on that one. If you don't want to talk about GA plus, I don't want to talk about these prelims.
Oh, Lord above, Lord above.
And the
And then,
fact that we're calling them prelims is even worse. Like, the
oh,
Americanization of them. But there you go.
oh, Lord above. And then next game of the weekend, you have David Clifford against Mead in Glenen's Park at 4:15.
Now, this is a crew that obviously could take the foot
And
off the
before
gas
we've
here.
any absolute water wipes, it's Kerry against Mead. So everyone settle down. It was only a joke before everyone just comes after us. Go on, Killian. Because there's lots of them.
Is there? All right,
Oh,
okay. Never encountered any of them in
all targeted at you.
yeah. Um,
Joking.
like, look, Kerry serious unit, but seem to have a little bit of a kink now and again, John. But no one has been able to maybe maximize that little kink, whatever it is. They just seem to have a little. I don't know, moment every so often. I don't know what it is. Like it's funny with this Kerry team. But then look, you look at the quality of the players that they have. Sure, like where do you even start? Like Kerry could afford to make 10 changes here and still beat Meath.
Do you
Like
reckon?
that's
Do you
yeah,
reckon? Yeah.
yeah. I like Meath are in a better spot than they have been in but I'm not sure. I think Kerry just they have their number, in that sense.
Mm.
I'd be surprised if Meath were able to get a result out of Kerry situation. It's just to me, it's all about Kerry being tuned in and putting a performance together because as I said, we have seen Kerry that maybe when the pressure's not on, they've allowed maybe to find themselves in a bit of a battle as they did with Cork. Like they just it can be that situation for them that they sometimes can just retreat back into themselves a little bit and then it causes a bit of angst. And as we said, someone hasn't found a way to burst through that kink that they have and maybe maximize it against them. So, look, Kerry to me are going to win this game. I can't see anything other happening. So, to me, Mead, I think will give it absolutely everything. But like, there's no let's say danger of them falling out a trap door or anything like that. They're going to be in a quarter final no matter what happens. So like to me, this is of all the games, it's probably the most that doesn't really matter ultimately. So top of the table, yeah, but like I think it's going to be Kerry that's going to win, and that's it.
Yeah, I think Kerry got a nice easy group, and
Mm.
Jack O'Connor is not going to be happy with how they've been road tested. I know they got a good test against Cork the last day, but again, if you want to win an All Ireland, these are the games that's not going to be seeing the proper Kerry. And
Yeah,
then
but that's the
yeah,
thing I'm coming back to, John, is that have they been guilty on occasion in just not taking the opposition seriously? Like they can't rely on Cliffords to get them out of a hole all the time, or the Guineas of this world, or whatever. Like it's a case in point that maybe they're just about doing enough. Maybe that'll be fine. But I do agree with you. There's going to be a danger then that they're going to hit maybe a semi-final that they're not, as you said, road tested enough for. And when maybe a bit of pressure or whatever comes on, or a bit of angst comes on, they're not able to respond to it. And as I said, that little kink that might be there, who will be the ones to drive through. And if they drive through that kink, well, then
But
that's maybe whoever will win. And ultimately, whoever does that, I think will win the All Ireland.
I still think Kerry will win the game, but Mead are big, big lads. They've done well this year. They've moved well. Robbie Brennan has had them competitive in every single game they played this year, maybe potentially part of the Leinster final. I think, as you rightly said, Kerry will win, but I think Mead will be competitive and they'll get in around Kerry. I think they will frustrate, David Clifford. They'll probably have a couple of lads around him, annoying him, so on and so forth. But Mead could be competitive. But I think going back to that Kerry thing, going down the stretch in Croke Park, when things are up against the wall and, Clifford's not firing, that's when Kerry could potentially flatten to deceive. So we'll wait and see, Killian. We will wait and
Yeah,
see.
we wait and see. Like, there's no doubt about it that Mead have some serious footballers there, or whatever. But like, I'm not wholly convinced that they've been in a situation where they let Roscommon back into that game and they got forced to draw. Like they've been in winning positions and probably have not been able to see it out. So that's why I just think Kerry would have too much for them. But if you're looking at it, as I said, the game of the weekend, it's probably the one that doesn't matter, in lots of ways, because, as I said, we know they're going to be in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then Joe McMahon and Marty Corey settling into life in Kilcoo. Seen a nice picture of them there yesterday. So hope it is going well for them. And then I had to
I'm sure.
mention that.
I'm sure it is. I couldn't think of any reason why it wouldn't be in Kilcoo for them. But there you go.
Oh, Killian, when's our day? Me and your day and the sun going to come? That's what I want to know. That's all I want to know.
Well, if you're talking about Leash and Cavan, you're further down the tracks than we are, but mm, I don't see it in the next few years, John. I'm sorry to tell you.
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? And then Sunday's action in the All Ireland Senior Football Championship round three. You have Tyrone against my own county Cavan in Brewster Park at 4 p.m. And of course, the game will be not fit to watch anywhere.
Uh,
Oh,
you're just not going. You're just not going to let that go
right,
to
that's
me,
the
are
last
you?
time. That's the last
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
last
yeah,
time.
yeah. This is not an ad for GAA Plus. Yeah. What do you want me to say, John? I'm going to step back here and allow you now to have
well,
a
look,
throw at
Killian,
this.
Killian, be careful because this jersey won't be coming up to you if you. Go
Well,
on ahead, Killian.
to be honest, again, it's whatever Tyrone team turns up, John.
100%.
Like, I wouldn't write Cavan off. I'm not going to write them off in any stretch of the imagination. If you have the Cavan team or the Tyrone team that turned up against Donegal, well, I can't see you getting within 6 points. But if the Tyrone team that turned up the last day turn up, well, I give you every shot. There's no doubt about that. So, like, that's the honest truth of it. I think you might turn around and say to me, well, then we're all dependent on Tyrone and it's nothing to do with Cavan. But, like, you know better than me. You know the quality of player that's there within Cavan. Like, this is a shot at it, John. Like, there's a great opportunity, Knox, to continue to be a big game player, let's say. So, why not just go all out for it?
Absolutely, Killian. And in fairness, and I know we say about Shawnee, but Shawnee Johnson did say after the last game against Tyrone, he said on the BBC Social, like, why is it not being talked about how many years we haven't bet Tyrone? I think, Killian, it could be 50 or 60 years when the last time Cav bet Tyrone in the championship. So I think we really need to break that wall down. Like the performance a couple of weeks ago, well, a couple of months ago at this stage in Healy Park just simply wasn't good enough. And, we put in that performance against Mayo, we put in that performance against Donegal the last day out. But look, Killian, as you rightly said, when is the time? The time has to be now. I think we really have to get a performance against them and we have to try get over the line against them. And we just need to go and try beat them. And I know obviously, look, results dependent, but Cavan's future in the All Ireland series of this year. But I think you'd like to think now that this full week and also all basically last week, maybe there's a few days to let their hair down for a couple of days, but that a few chances to work on things from the Donegal game thing that didn't go right. But obviously we didn't see Grove McCarran the last day. It'll be interesting to see does Grove get any game time this weekend. You've obviously Paddy Lynch. Hopefully, I think from a GAA point of view, spectator point of view, we do see Paddy this weekend and starting with the help and praise of God. But James Smith came on the last day too. So look, as you said, look, there is a lot of quality in that Cavan team to threaten to under Tyrone this weekend. But again, will we see it? Will we see our big names standing up? That's what we really need to see. And I think the Cavan supporters, like, we deserve something after that Donegal game because they came in their thousands last time out. The stand was absolutely full. I haven't actually seen a crowd like that in Breffni Park for some time. You could not get a decent standpoint from that game at all. So I really hope they do put in a performance. And I think, as Shawnee said a couple of weeks ago, we should nearly be putting posters up at this stage when we bet Tyrone and even just feed into the players' mindset. And it'd be great to get a result on Sunday. It really would.
Yeah, look, there's the romantic in you coming out now. At the end of the day, to be honest, like if Cavan, if Cavan don't bounce from something, they have to give something from that defeat to Donegal. John, it could be a long afternoon. There's no question about that. But when you look back at the record, Cavan were in that game up until Rorty got the goal just before the halftime whistle, and then it was a bit of a mountain to climb, and what was the nearest? I think Cavan got the second half, was it 4 or 5 points, and then Donegal just kicked on again in the final quarter. There is no doubt that Cavan have the ability. They've been able to beat Mayo, and then you obviously see Mayo beating Tyrone, and then you see Cavan falling by the wayside against Donegal, albeit ultimately the last quarter of the game, it really reflects the score. But there's still, I'm going to buy into the romanticism here, John. Okay, you've a one-off game against Tyrone, a team you haven't beaten in 50, 60 years. And the chance of it, the nugget at the end of it, is that you qualify and stay in the All-Ireland series. Like, would you not be hopping off the ground to get out onto that pitch? Absolutely, I would think, and that's something obviously Galligan has to be getting through to the and I'm sure there's plenty of people. It's a one-off. Just have a cut off it, and like, to be serious, if Cavan want to be serious and talking about themselves as being an All Ireland Sam Maguire team, well, these are the games you have to be showing a bit of mettle in, and like Tyrone won't be looking forward to it either. Like Tyrone have to take matters into their own hand as well, because obviously if Mayo beat Donegal, well, it can change a lot of the complexions of the group and whatever. And so can obviously Donegal beat Mayo. So like it's a really tight and interesting finish here. But I'm going to buy into the romanticism with you there, John. Okay, and I'm going to feel that Cavan are going to give Tyrone a fill of it, and it could be right in the mixer into the closing stages here.
I really hope so, Killian. And I think like it is high time we do get over the line against them. And as you rightly said, I think if the Cavan lads aren't bouncing off the walls on Sunday afternoon, getting ready for this game and getting hyped up, because they know, and like there's no point saying to the players, they know that Donegal game wasn't acceptable. They know the standards weren't good enough. Like there's no point saying it to them, but I really do hope they're just, and Ray Galligan will leave no stone unturned this weekend. All the preparations will be going towards obviously this Tyrone very good team. Obviously, you've Dara Canavan flying, Darren McCurry, Peter Hart, to name a few. Look, it's a big ask, and I know, Jesus, sometimes it's the hope that kills you. And obviously, we're going in. Yeah, we're going in. We're going.
Like, John, you have a situation here. Imagine if Donegal and Mayo draw.
Yeah.
And Cavan beat Tyrone. They top the table, don't they?
Yeah, but there you go. There you go. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot. There is a lot on the line, and I hope the Cavan players realize this. Like, and look, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Shawnee did say like it is high time. We just say, when was the last time we beat these? Put that up on the walls, the dressing room walls. Put it on the front page of the Anglo Celt. Like, let's get, what was it Kevin Keegan said when that Newcastle game? Like, I'd love if we beat them. We need to beat them. We need to beat them.
Don't quote that line, because you know what happened after that.
Oh God, I know.
Yeah, but like it's a very, look, as I said, maybe we're getting caught up in the romanticism of it, and you being a Cavan man, I'm going to buy into it here. But like, when you look at, as I said, that group could still play out so many different permutations, but you're not going to know what's going on down the road with Donegal and Mayo. Well, I'm sure there'll be people keeping in contact, but you have to go after your own situation. And if you win and other things were to fall in such a way, you could top the table and you're going straight through in a quarter final. Like, why not? One off, 75, 80 minutes, whatever will ultimately be played. You'd be hoping lads will be hopping off the wall coming out into Brewster Park.
Yeah, I think the Cavan supporters as well. I think after the last game, you'd like to think hopefully supporters will get down to Enniskillen. Like, it's not too far away from Cavan, in fairness. So you'd like to think there will be big support to cheer the lads over the line. Hopefully.
Yeah, and it's a ground, obviously, that it's a right little compact venue.
Oh God, yeah.
If it's packed in, it could really be raucous. That you just want guys to come out, as says, and show some little bit of want
Well, they have
and will,
they have to stand up after that Donegal game. They have to. They
Yeah,
absolutely have to. So,
yeah.
oh God, who knows, Killian? Maybe I'm putting too much energy into this, and it's a simple.
But hey, John, that's what we do. That's what we do, and it's the hope that
That's our
kills
job.
you. That's the thing.
That's our job. But look, I think. Look at this. It's just this Cavan thing again. It really is. Brings you up, lets you down. Look at Tyrone. Probably will win Killian after all that, won't they? Realistically.
Realistically, it depends on the Tyrone team that turns up. I think
100%, yeah.
that's to me, that's it. If I'm to take all heart and romanticism out of it, it's Tyrone's by at least 6 points. But like I if there's going to be a result over the weekend that might just go against everything that everyone's saying, this could be the one. This could be the one.
Oh God, who knows? Well, look at Cavan lads. They definitely owe the supporters one. So let's hope and pray to God they can get over the line on Sunday, because we need to beat them lads. But then you've Donegal against Mayo in Dr. Hyde Park at 4 p.m. And of course, the game will be live on RTE.
Right. So Cavan, okay. Just you're putting that in there again. Okay.
No, no. Actually, that wasn't the thing at all. I've moved on, Killian. I've moved on. So get with the program. Get with the program, will you?
Donegal again. Donegal and Mayo. Who knows what could happen?
Oh,
Mayo
God
are
only
just.
knows.
Listen, I know so many Mayo people, worked with a number of them over the years, and fair play. They've been through the ringer on so many occasions.
Killian,
Well.
do you know? Sorry to put in, but do you know Enda McGarty, the All Ref podcast? Would you know
Yes.
Enda McGarty?
Yeah.
He's a Cavan man, and he's portraying himself as a Mayo man. It's the greatest form of heartbreak. I said there, what was he was on about Mayo result, and I said that's a happy Cavan man in Mayo tonight, and he didn't like it, but sure.
That's right. If he's a Cavan man, there you go. But again, well with Mayo here, John, if they show up, they could do enough to be able to upset Donegal. That's the betwixt and between of it. We've seen Donegal as well. Like Tyrone took it to them and gave it to them, and they didn't step up. And I would imagine that's something that McGuinness has been, harping on about. Maybe that's why Cavan suffered so much in that second half a little bit. That he was kind of looking at things. I'd imagine at half time, I'd say McGuinness, let the Donegal boys know this is not acceptable. If you're thinking you're keeping Cavan in this game, and the way you played against Tyrone, so that's probably a little bit of hurt was taken out on Cavan definitely in that last quarter. But well that Mayo could turn up and shoot the lights out, and Donegal can't put a hand on them. So it's like I think Donegal will win this game. I just think they have the talent and wherewithal to be able to do it, but I'm just not convinced by one or two things so far in the group stages. But maybe, Jim McGuinness, he's the manager. He knows well. I'm not sure about, their kickouts, their possession from those. And I think that's caused them a little bit of hardship.
And their defense.
Yeah, it just, they seem to be thriving enough on basically their swarm element, and then being able to burst out. And it's really like you score 5, we'll score 6 kind of thing, which I'm not sure is in the Jim McGuinness rule book or playbook or whatever it might be. But when you look at all the O'Donnells, the 3 different versions that are on the field of play, the Thompson, Murphy, Langan. Langan didn't score the last day, but Jesus, he like on any day, he's just unmarkable and one of the best players in the country. Yeah. You have wing backs and cornerbacks and everything scoring. Maybe it doesn't matter to Jim that maybe defensively, but you come up against a Mayo crew that maybe are able to lock down some of those forwards and take their own chances. You wouldn't be surprised if Mayo win this game either, but I'd be surprised if that happens, to be honest. I think Donegal, if they're over that little bit, whatever malaise that happened to them against Tyrone, and they took out all their anger on you, and they've kind of got the dirty petrol out of the system, I think I'd fancy them to be beating Mayo.
Yeah, God, yeah, I was very convinced by Donegal the last day, but that is going to be a very interesting game to follow this weekend, and God only knows what could happen. And then you've Monaghan against Down in the box at Athletic Grounds at 2 p.m. Of course, game will be live on RT.
Yeah, and this, I didn't see. I don't know about you, John. I didn't see Down having so much of
No.
an impact on this group here. Like it's they have they have been really, really impressive. Laverty has definitely got them singing the tune. And the thing as well there is that there doesn't seem to be any real standout individual. It looks like that they've got all their parts together, and they all know their job. And while I think I saw, and I don't want to take this quote and that the Down supporters might be after me on this, but I think I did see a comment somewhere about that they mightn't be the most talented, skillful group of footballers, but they definitely know how to all sing off the same hymn sheet. And
Mm.
Leverty is definitely, and I hope I don't upset any of the other Down clubs here, but he definitely has used some of the Kilcoo playbook, in being able to galvanise them together. And I have to say, I always admired Down as a football team
Mm.
over the years. I always thought they were one of those that set out maybe the style of Gaelic football over the years, and
Mm.
were catalyst and pinnacle of that. I'm really delighted that they're probably back up showing their mettle, because they definitely have gone through a slump there in recent times. So it's good to see that they're back. But like this game here is again, does it really matter? I suppose in the grand scheme of things, other than you might want to be laying a marker. Like, look, the winners are down in Monaghan earn a last eight spot. The losers get the consolation of last 12. The draw does down, and then they stay in pole position. Um, like it's, I don't know. I do think there'll be two teams wanting to get a result and put them in good fettle for later on the championship. So look, they're still in the championship. Which way they want to go? Down mightn't, or Monaghan might not have any issue with playing another game. In just fine tuning things if they want to head into the series, because an extra game mightn't do them any harm. John, and what I'm trying to get at here is, when, if they qualify out of a preliminary quarter final, that they're meeting one of the bigger crew then, in a quarter final. So, an extra game they mightn't be too disheartened by. But if you're down Monaghan, you might want to go through the front door and you want to be in that quarter final. So this could be a right tester, interesting encounter, and again, like I said previously, it could be a case of wanting to lay down a marker for a few weeks time or something like that. So um call it. I think I'm going to go with Monaghan. I just think Monaghan
Mm.
might just have their number a little bit. I just think that their spread of scores might be an important factor here.
Yeah, I'm delighted for Down in terms of how this campaign kind of has gone for them, like up and down sort of league, but like they kind of have shown what they can do, the footballers that they have, and Conor Lafferty definitely has them where he wants them, and he's done very well now in the last couple of games, has to be said. And then the last game of the
Oh,
weekend,
the only,
Killing.
and sorry, John, just the one concern that
Oh
you would have
yeah,
is that obviously against Loud, they had that lead, and Loud just like it took that defensive block right at the end to stop wasn't it a 2 point opportunity, I think, for
yeah.
Mulroy, so like despite the fact that they had a healthy lead, that that was allowed to be whittled down, that would be the only concern that you probably would have, whereas Monaghan to me just looked like to be a little bit more in tune of a unit. But of course, we all know, John, what's going to happen. We're going to talk about this. We'll downplay Down as much as possible, and they'll go and hit the traps and hit the lights out, and we'll be made look like Egypts. And sure, what do we know?
Yeah,
I think it's Monaghan's though.
yeah. I think Monaghan will get the job done in Armagh at the weekend. But again, don't be surprised if Down could put off a complete masterstroke. And then last game of the weekend, you have Louth against Clare in Laois Higher Moor Park at 2 p.m.
Yeah, who would have thought now we've been in this situation for Loud, after the All Ireland series and the way everything had gone for the Leinster Championship and the way everything had gone for them. I think there's been a little bit of a hangover, but they're still in a position that they showed well the last day against Down. They probably just gave themselves too much to do, John. That's what it ultimately worked out. I firmly believe that they'll have too much here for Clare. I can't see Louth not making unless something disastrous happens and they take the eye off the ball. You know, I fully expect Louth to get the victory here. I think Louth might have got ahead of themselves a little bit with regards to the Monaghan game. May, you know, and may have just, as I said, got found out a little bit. I think then they got, you know, I don't know what happened. Like the weather conditions obviously played a part in Park Esler, but they were getting into their groove and they just fell short. So I think some of the hurt over the last couple of weeks will be taken out on Clare. I wouldn't be surprised if Louth beat Clare by 10 points. You know, that could happen.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you could see a Clare team that give a bit of a shot at it here as well, knowing that they've one last chance here of making a preliminary quarter final. So I don't think they're going to have enough in the tank to beat Louth, and I think Louth are probably lucky they're meeting Clare in the last game. So I think it's Louth to win here.
Yeah, Killian, it's going to be a very, very exciting weekend. You're going to be on Scorpio, you're going to be on Twitter, you're going to be on Facebook, you're going to be on WhatsApp. Like there's a lot of spin, there's a lot of plates
and
to
Cavan
spin.
are still not on GAA Plus, but there you go. You know.
Oh Lord, Killian, don't test me blood pressure. But look, it's going to be a mad weekend. Like you're just going to be on WhatsApp. The bloody thumbs are going to be falling off. Like it's just going to be so much kind of going into it. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting weekend. Absolutely, Killian. Your players to watch this weekend and bets of the weekend. Gamble responsibly.
Oh God, I would be thinking I'd be keeping an eye on some of the Tailteann action. Firstly, I would think watch out for Daniel Flynn against Offaly.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
my man, my man.
yeah, your man. I think Daniel might be just coming back to some form,
What a baller.
and he could be the difference against Offaly. No love lost there. Went to school in Edenderry, right on the border. Might be the one game that gets him fired up, and you know, in a raucous enough Newbridge or nowhere kind of scenario, maybe Kildare will do a number. So watch out for Dan on that. Looking forward to seeing what obviously. Let me see. I'm thinking of Derry and what I said against Dublin. I think McGuigan might just have a game again as well in that encounter. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that one. So for me, there'd be two I'd be keeping, you know, an ultimate eye on. I think this weekend just to see maybe what comes out of it. But geez, to ask me now for a bet, maybe Wicklow to take Westmeath and Ockram. Maybe that might be the one. You know.
Be
But
some story,
wouldn't it? But as I said, bet responsibly and don't listen to any bets that I give you.
Ooh, I don't know, Killian. Jeez, that could be a serious, serious shout. But again, it's going to be a really exciting weekend. There's so much to kind of play for, and let's hope we have a couple of good games to talk about next week. Absolutely. Well, Killian William, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is kindly brought to you by yourgarage.com. Use my promo code JMAC Podcast to get 15% off on the website. Killian, have a great week.
Thanks very much, John, and to all your viewers and listeners out there, enjoy the weekend. This could be a right ding dong weekend, whatever comes after that. But when it comes down to permutations and one result here or there, it really makes it exciting. So hang on to your hats now for Saturday and Sunday evenings.
And get your GAA Plus subscriptions.
As long as they show Cavan.
A nice way to finish. Killian, have a great week. Thanks very much.
Good luck to you, buddy.